a little different than at trial.
Right.
But you know, that's about the only defense they have. Because when you're looking through these text messages, they are awful.
Yeah.
They're heinous.
Yeah,
They're
they're
beyond
They're
egregious.
disgusting.
They're
yeah,
they're beyond
they're
disgusting. There's without a shadow of a doubt, and that's why even that female lawyer who was giving that objection to the bind over, she just conceded to the CSE. She was like, "We're not even arguing that because those text messages were read out
It's very
one by
clear.
one by one, the back and
Our
forth."
Detroit defense is unfiltered. Why don't you tell us who you are and what your Instagram handle is?
What up, No Detroit is Purna Krishnamurthy, my Detroit lawyer.
and I'm Austin Gregory, 313 counselor.
All right. All right. Well, it is early January. Happy fucking New Year.
Happy New Year.
And it has kicked
Happy New Year.
off with a lot of shit going on.
Yes,
Detroit.
it has.
Not play. So why don't you tell us what's going on in Detroit right now in the crime scene?
Austin, did you hear about Kayla Cream? She brought in the new year with a bang.
Yeah, she.
Started in 2024.
Yeah,
Technically speaking,
Brought it
yes.
into 2025.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for those of you guys that don't know, this is our little crime in the D segment. Kayla Cream like broke the internet in every way. So this is a girl who was at a New Year's Eve party. She was invited there by, I guess, some people she didn't really know. She was recording herself on live, had put her phone apparently on a place where there was an obituary for a father that the person living in the home had a father that had recently passed, and the obituary was on this shelf in the house. So Kayla Cream had put her phone there and was recording herself, and girl snatches the phone, basically tells her to move the phone, don't put it there. Kayla Cream does this. She takes the phone. There's no argument, no nothing. She continues to dance and do her thing, and she's moving around. And several minutes later, I guess it appears that the girl who told her to move the phone told her friends that this was like a very disrespectful act, and all of them jump on Kayla Cream and basically beat her ass. Like, they jumped her. So the following day, these girls who whooped her got on social media and were antagonizing her to the point that they beat her ass the night before. And so Kayla Cream, she did some shit that she stood 10 toes down on business. She was like, oh, okay. So she got her people together, and evidently she has a recording of them going up in the house, and they went through the front door. They busted out some windows. They stole the ashes of the dad. They stole the urn with the ashes
Not
of the
the
father.
ashes.
Yeah.
Not the ashes.
And they ran out the crib, and so Maya is the girl who apparently was the one who was whooping her ass. So Maya ended up in jail. Kayla Cream ended up in jail. Kayla Cream's out.
What happened with the ashes?
They still don't know. The ashes have not been found. But
They're holding the ashes. In the house.
I thought maybe I'm wrong. Did they appear? Like, did she dump them out? I thought she
I think
dumped them out in
those
July
were
or
like
something.
random like memes and stuff that people were saying on Facebook. I don't know if any of that is true, but Kayla Cream.
Oh, but how did she get out? I wonder. Like, she clearly is the one that.
How'd she get out of jail?
Yeah.
Probably paid bond. She bonded out. She had a tether and
She's
stuff
on
like that.
bond. She's
Yeah.
definitely gonna end up in jail once it's like.
I mean,
Maybe.
no,
I don't know.
not
Like,
definitely.
Is it like what is she charged with?
She's charged with home invasion, and she's charged with probably like
Kidnapping ashes.
no,
Well,
I don't
not
know.
quite kidnapping since they're not alive.
It was home
That work.
It's home invasion for sure, and maybe like larceny or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Even though weirdly, this is one of those things where it's like, what's the value of the thing? You know, like
Yeah, I don't think you can put a value on
yeah,
ashes.
on
right?
ashes.
Like that's.
I mean, you
crazy.
can on the urn. but-
Yeah, yeah. The
Not
urn.
the actual ashes.
No.
I mean, yeah, that's priceless.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what about the Maya? She's not getting charged with anything.
I don't know whether she is, but because I don't even know what
She-
her real name is to be able to look her up.
Mm.
I just saw her Facebook name, but she definitely should be getting charged for the assault that happened the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like that's wild. That's
Well,
on video.
I'm curious because like in both videos of the jump and of the
Ashes.
getting taken, like you can't clearly see who's doing the actual jumping. Like you can kind of, but like how much does that like take into consideration into court and the actual charges that are filed.
I mean, it shows actions happening. Yeah. And the biggest thing that I'm going to give this little bit of, I don't know if I would call it advice, but just way to live your life. Maybe don't record yourself committing crimes.
Don't do that.
It makes it a lot easier for us.
To Kayla's point, she didn't know a crime was going to happen when she was getting jumped. Like, she was literally, it was New Year's Eve party. She's doing her thing. Like, I would say to Kayla, like, the day after, like,
what about the ashes part?
Like, yeah, that's the day after. I'm talking strictly that New Year's Eve night.
Like,
she
December
was not 31st.
In the wrong. December 31st? Well,
so,
yeah, she's right.
Yeah.
January 1st.
I think it was actually like January 2nd. But yeah.
I'd be curious, like, there were a lot of people hyping her up on Facebook and, like, getting her to go on stories, go on live, and I think there's, like, this, like, inflation of oneself that makes them want to go and do more and more to get that, like, sort of clout.
Yeah,
but
I would say.
Is there anything, like, for the people that have been sort of egging her on that...
No,
it's, just like,
it's not illegal
no
to egg people on. No. Like, you can egg people on.
This is...
So it's more of a warning. Don't let people egg you on to do stupid shit.
Yeah, don't be so caught up in these random people on the internet. Like, they're not about to be doing the time with you. Like, you gotta... Like, you've been sitting in jail waiting on that tether, sis. Nobody was in there with you. You were in there by yourself. Like, don't let that be a thing. But yeah, Detroit... We've been making headlines in 2025, y'all. Like, whoa.
There's some more.
And we're at the 11th.
Yeah.
11 days into 2025. What else is going on in Detroit?
I mean, so there was that hate crime that happened. So I don't know people's names. I just don't care about them that much. But back in 2023, a man says that he was not informed that he was having he bought a prostitute or bought services from a prostitute, found out that she was transgender, and killed her in a fit of rage.
I did not hear about this.
You didn't hear about this?
No.
He pled guilty this week. So he's sentenced to 17 to 30 years.
No, I did. This was just on Crime of the D. On Friday, he was sentenced.
Yeah, he was sentenced on Friday. Like, it was a big thing, and like...
It was like 30 to something years or something like that. Yeah.
The thing I was most disappointed in is the comments, because they were like, well, did she inform him? And I'm like, what in the world does it matter if she informed him?
Right.
Like, where you're like, well, now if he didn't inform her, or if she didn't inform him, then... She should have died. Like, is that what you're saying with that question? It makes no sense.
I saw that little blip on Crime in the Deep. Yeah, I didn't pay close attention, but I recall that now that you said it.
Yeah,
wow.
That was the thing that got me, was when I was looking at it and I was like, I should read the comments, because it just felt like a area where people were gonna spread hate. So
100%, and it is being charged as a hate crime.
Yeah, he's been sentenced. He was convicted and everything. He was already sentenced and everything. Okay, so he's in there.
All right. Okay, shall we jump into, or are there any other topics that we want to talk about before we jump into the main?
Let's go Maine.
Yeah, let's go Maine. Yeah.
Let's go Maine. All the way Maine. All right. So we have one case or trial that is all over the news right now. Neziah Harris and Jarvis Butts, that's on trial right now, or the preliminary.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what is this for those that aren't aware and some of the facts of the case?
So, yeah, if anyone is not aware of this, I don't know where you've been living, because this has been everywhere. So, Neziah Harris is a 13-year-old girl who went missing on January 9th of 2024. Currently, Jarvis Butts has been charged with criminal sexual assault of Neziah Harris and her murder. Her body has not been found. They just conducted the preliminary exam. It took a total of 5 days. They did 1 day in November, and they completed 4 days this last week that we just had. And the evidence that has come out and the testimony that was given at this exam is wild. Wild. So Jarvis, for those of you that don't know, he was previously convicted of CSC of a minor some years ago and spent, I believe, like 10 years in prison for that. He got out of prison and for whatever reason has a multitude of girlfriends, women who are still willing to date him, knowing that this man has went to prison for CSC of minors.
Now, real quick,
Yeah.
are they women with children?
Yes,
Yep,
they
that
are.
makes sense.
Yes. So that is one of the sticking points that the prosecution made several times is that he has a specific type of woman that he goes after, and these are women that have daughters because he likes to basically use the women. He wants to use the women to get to the children. There is a 4-year-old, his 4-year-old daughter. I believe it was his daughter. I've heard some places are saying it's not his daughter. Some places are saying it is his daughter. There was no testimony at the exam that talked about the 4-year-old, but there is for sure a 4-year-old girl that he gave chlamydia to, which some are saying is his daughter. But Naziah was 12 at the time. She was actually 11 at the time he started having sex with her, according to the evidence that came out at preliminary exam. So he started having sex with her in 2022 through 2023, and then at the very beginning of 2024, she was pregnant by him, and that is when she went missing. Basically, he even knows Naziah because Naziah's aunt, her aunt Shannon, is one of his baby mamas that he has 5 kids by. It was reported at the preliminary exam that this guy has 13 kids, but it's reported by family members on various podcasts online that he has more than 20 children. So
seems right.
Yeah. He has been accused of having sex with his own children, who he has 3 other outstanding CSC cases right now that he's facing outside of Naziah's case. So this guy...
So based on, he's got these previous convictions, and clearly there's some evidence that's like making it very clear that like he has had, sex with a minor.
Yes.
What actually, like, how much does that, like, the previous convictions, like, how much weight does that hold into, like, proving his guilt in this case, as well as...
So, realistically, it should be none.
No.
Right? Like, there's some weird stuff about prior acts when you're trying to prove motive and, like, some of that stuff. But when you're talking about this, so you have to consider... Did this happen? That doesn't really mean anything about the past. And you can't really talk about open charges. Like that's...
But his previous actual conviction, I mean, given the fact that he's a habitual, they're going to read his habitual record into it. So the CSC is going to... If this goes to a jury trial.
If it goes to a jury trial, then the jury would hear that he has previously been convicted. Because that's also a thing that you need to establish in order to get a higher sentence and all these other things.
And even for him to be charged as a habitual.
Correct.
So, yeah.
But like when he's facing other charges, that's not going to come into play. It's just not appropriate.
So, from what I understand, obviously there's no body. They haven't found her body yet.
Right.
And it's been a year now at this point. So, like, what evidence do they have to actually take this as a case, and how much weight is there when there is, like, what does it mean when there is no body? How does that, like, kind of deter from actually having the actual case?
So, in my opinion, in cases where there is no body, obviously it does make it more difficult to establish that a murder occurred, but this is one of those cases where the multitude and magnitude of evidence that they have brought out about the relationship that existed between Jarvis and Naziah it's such hard evidence that I don't think that anyone in their right mind is going to deny the fact that there was motive for him to have killed her, and therefore I think it's a slam dunk for the prosecution, unfortunately. Fortunately, not unfortunately.
So, like, circumstantial evidence is enough. So, the circumstances in this case are, it was January 9th, 2024 when she was last seen. Correct. It's now been a full year. She was not, one of the things that they pointed out was that she's not a runaway type of kid. They found blood on... they found blood on clothing. I saw a shoe. Did they find both shoes or just one shoe?
I think they found both.
Okay.
I think they did find both.
But,
right and a left.
So in terms of, like, legal bare like technical things that we say. So there's one appeal, it's called like a habeas corpus, which basically means show me the body, and that is important in a person's mind initially. So it's really easy to say, man, it's no body. How are we saying it's murder? It's murder or anything, or even that he's guilty. But at the same time, when you're looking through and you're just using some logic, it's not necessary that they produce a dead body.
They were able to find the clothing that she was last wearing at the Rouge River. So the sweatshirt, the shoes, and his cell phone pinged in that location too, after the time of January 9th, like the last time she was seen. I think with that alone, and given the fact that nobody on the face of this earth has heard from Naziah Harris since January 9th of 2024, that in and of itself, I think, is enough to prove that and circumstantially, we know that she was pregnant at the time, which gives him more motive, because the text messages that were sent between her and him at that time was that she was pregnant. She had told him, and his searches, his Google searches were trying to do at-home abortions.
Yeah.
So
enough.
He was definitely doing something. And her last location ping was at a motel on Jefferson and Connor, which that motel is evidently very well known for being a sex trafficking place. It's a place where lots of young women are taken to have sex with.
Okay. So lots of evidence, and I think I heard that, or saw that his DNA was even on her sweatshirt that they found too. Right?
I think so. I think there was trace DNA. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, my thing would be, like, I don't think that would be crazy given the relationship they had, regardless of it. Is if his DNA was on anything of hers.
Because they were clearly having sex.
They were having sex. So, you know, like, that's kind of not unusual given the circumstances, but.
Yeah. Well, regardless of, like, you could kind of argue that, like, okay, well, his DNA would be on there, but, like, it seems like there's enough circumstantial evidence to prove that, like, he had motive, he was the last person to see her, all of that.
Yep.
It's almost like you said, like, easy win for the prosecution. So why even have a defense at this point? What's the defense even thinking right now? What are they supposed to do with so much kind of against him?
So we talked about this. Yeah. Like, one, lawyers always have a duty when you're doing this to provide a defense.
Absolutely.
But there's certain things that you have to kind of guard against. So you're really preserving the record, making sure that, like, wherever there's any glimmer of or sliver where you can create some doubt, you kind of try to make sure that you leave room for yourself to be able to do that in case it goes to trial. And like, we have a job, so we can get grieved, lose our license if we don't go forward and give the best defense possible. Doesn't matter what the circumstances are, we have to do our best.
Absolutely. So I just want to add to that by saying I was watching the preliminary exam and I was reading the comments in the chat, and a lot of people were like, oh, these lawyers suck. These lawyers are terrible. Why are they even, like, don't give him a defense. Like, fuck this guy. He's guilty, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay. I don't think anyone in their right mind wants to defend Jarvis Butts. Like, I think it's very obvious this guy is a monster of all monsters. Like, for sure, there's solid evidence. But at the end of the day, if people were paying careful attention to what the defense was doing, they did their job. They did their job, and they did their job well. They asked the questions that could be asked, and they objected to the things that could be objected to. But at the same time, I feel like I could read off of their body language and off of the things that they were doing. Like, you can tell when an attorney is being passionate about their client and really 100%. Coming to bat and fighting hard. And you could tell that these attorneys don't feel passionately about this guy. Like, I felt like I could tell that at least. Well, and I don't know them, so I don't want to speak for them, but I felt like I could pick up that vibe.
And my thought is, like, I don't want to get into that. So, like, what they deserve is the best defense you can put out.
Period.
And I think that they were doing that with what they have.
Absolutely.
So, like, I get that. One thing I do want to say, like, so we have had clients that we don't like. Yes. Right? Like, I've had a couple clients where I don't like them. I don't know. Have you?
Yes.
You've had some clients you don't like. It's really easy to not like a client sometimes.
Yeah.
But that does not prevent you from doing your
right,
job.
it doesn't stop me from doing my job. It's never
Yeah.
stopped you from doing your job.
Yeah.
And whether or not they like him, they're doing their jobs.
Yes.
Right. So
And that's the thing I guess I want to
Yeah.
differentiate too is like whether you like a person or don't like a person is different than what the facts of their case is. I cannot like you, but you have very good facts that make you very innocent, and I'm still going to come to bat for you the way that you need to be batted for. Period. I think in this case, though, I mean, the text messages, the cell phone location, like there is so many things here where really what can they present as a defense? There's not much they can do. They can talk about the fact that maybe there was a murder, maybe there wasn't a murder, blah blah blah. Like that's really their only angle, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that's the thing that we thought was, is there actually a murder that happened here? Like, can you prove that a murder happened? At preliminary, it's a little different than at trial,
Right.
but you know, that's about the only defense they have. Because when you're looking through these text messages, they are awful.
Yeah.
They're heinous.
Yeah,
They're beyond
They're
egregious.
disgusting.
They're
Yeah.
beyond disgusting. There's without a shadow of a doubt, and that's why even that female lawyer who was giving that objection to the bind over, she just conceded to the CSE. She was like, "We're not even arguing that because those text messages were read out one by one by one, the back and forth between the two of them, and they were able to establish whose phone number was Nazia's, whose phone number was Jarvis's." And so that was very clear that she wasn't even trying to make an argument for that.
It made no sense to.
You
it made
couldn't.
no sense to.
You would literally be an attorney that's just reaching for the stars at that point
Yeah.
with nothing.
Yeah, and it's not like you can't go and say, "Oh, my phone got hacked. It was just for a day." No, this is over an extended
This was
period
months
of
and
time.
months and months.
Yeah, so there's no way to defend like, "Oh, he's not sending these text messages or somebody else." No, it's very clear that
yeah.
there's a sexual relationship.
Ultimately, though, it's a losing battle, right? So, like, they're arguing things. So, for example, like the CSC thing, unarguable. There's no point in even addressing that.
Right.
But
At preliminary, there's no point in addressing that.
yeah.
But yeah.
But like there is like it's circumstantial evidence at this point. So for the murder itself, they could say like, hey, there's no actual physical proof or things like that. But what's the end goal? Is it so that they can say like he's off of that, or is it do they know that it's a losing battle and it's just that, to your point, just to do the job so that he has some fair defense?
Well, like again, so we don't know what their goal is. So
Yeah, I don't know them.
my thought is the homicide is shaky. Like that's where you have the best area to attack is the homicide, which is a life offense.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
I mean,
yeah.
I think he's facing life for everything.
Yeah,
right?
he is.
But
He's got a lot of things pending.
but like you really your goal is to make it so that when you're trying to create a plea with the prosecution, you have as much power as you can to limit what they offer or make it as favorable to your client as possible.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with you.
Limited, it sounds like, but
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. And even, I mean, I'll just say that even as a defense attorney, like, you know, I very strongly believe in my client's rights and everything. But this case is such a doozy. I find it hard to believe that a jury is going to sit and listen to this amount of testimony. And
No.
I pray
Yeah.
that this does not go to trial. I pray that this guy just takes
Yeah.
a plea.
So before we get to why you pray for it not going to trial and everything, I do want to ask a question. Sorry to step on your toes, but like,
Please.
I know how I feel about this case.
Yeah.
How do you feel about like Jarvis Butts in this case in general?
So I don't feel like this about every CSC case because I don't know the facts of every CSC case. The facts that have come out in this case, I totally agree with Judge Sabri when she said this guy's a monster. I
Yeah.
completely agree that this
Yeah.
guy is a predator. He is a monster. He is despicable. Like this, there is absolutely no excuse, justification. There's nothing I can overlook in any
Yeah.
action this man has taken. Like this is the most egregious, disgusting shit I've ever heard in my life. Like fuck no.
Yeah.
Fuck no.
Like I've thought he was a monster too.
Yeah.
Really. And sometimes, you know, it sounds like I'm making an apology. It's just when you're a defense attorney, and I've read comments when I'm, you know, online or whatever, something I'm doing is online, and you read the comments and people are really going in on you for having to defend somebody and do your job. And like that has always kind of sat with me. So I remember standing in front of a client one time and being made to look like a fool just for defending him.
Yes.
And so I'm certain that you've had it,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so in this case, I just wanted to be, because we're both defense attorneys. We both go out there and we both defend people who are accused of criminal actions, but you don't have to sympathize or everything else that's
there is
happening.
a job. I can feel as strongly about Jarvis Butts as I do, because he is not my client.
Yeah.
I do not have to do shit for this man. Like, I can sit here and judge him until the cows come home, because thankfully I do not represent this man in any way, shape, or form. I'm very happy that I don't have to. I pray that in my future that this level of heinousness does not come my way.
Yeah.
So it is easy for me to sit here and be able to very candidly speak on how I feel about him, because my job is not entangled with anything that has to do with this guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe a bit of a tangent, but like, I think to that point, like, if you take, regardless of the case, if you take one person's like ability to have a fair trial, you take it away for everybody.
Yeah.
And the what you've been saying here is that like you're doing your job to defend the defense and
Correct.
the point of it,
Correct.
right? And so it's sort of unfair to look at you two or other defense attorneys to say like, well, you shouldn't even be doing this in the first place.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Because if you were to say that to your exact point, if you say that for one person, you have to say that for everyone.
Exactly.
And when there's any case, whether it goes to trial or not, there's always going to be, because there's always a victim and there's always a defendant, right? So there's always two sides of the coin every time. So no matter how you look at it, no matter what the facts and circumstances, there's always going to be the polar opposites, and we're always going to be looking like we're defending someone. But I mean, there's so many innocent people that end up going to prison for things all the time, where our job is absolutely necessary still.
Yeah.
In this guy's case, don't take what I'm saying, because this guy is wild.
He still deserves, every single human being deserves a fair trial.
Correct.
Hopefully he gets the whole fucking book thrown at him.
Exactly, because despite how fair, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but despite how fair this man's trial is, I believe like he will be given a fair trial, and at your fair trial, sir, justice will be done for you, because this is wild work. So everybody, despite what you've done, for sure deserves a fair trial. I will agree.
And he's 42, right? He's 42 years old.
Correct.
This girl was 11, so
When
maybe he was 40.
Yes.
When he started this, he's 40 years old.
Yeah.
I would hope that his minimum sentence starts at 40 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's really, when you're watching this stuff, I can't look at this and go, oh, yeah, I hope for no, I hope for a minimum sentence of 40 years. Yeah. And, that's where it would start. That's where it would start.
And prison's not going to be fun.
Yeah, it reduces your life expectancy. So a normal black man is expected to live, like, I think to like 62, 65. So
40 is kind, in my opinion. I ain't got shit for this man. And I feel like this world has nothing left for him. Like,
Yeah.
No, none.
He's taking too much.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about the case so far. So, I know that there's been a ton of people that have testified, children, family members. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So they had the grandmother, Annette, she testified. She was actually the caretaker for, Neziah. Aunt Shannon was the baby mama of Jarvis, who was the aunt of Neziah. There was the medical examiner. There was, forensics people that testified. There was Cordell. Cordell was Jarvis's business partner who owned that mechanic shop with him. The sister of Jarvis testified. There's a lot of people that I feel like need to go to jail behind this too. I'm so upset about.
This is where we're going to get that first disagreement. But first, I'm going to pause just so we can pretend like when we get sponsors, we'll be able to put it here.
Okay.
What were we talking about?
So we were just talking about who's testified so far, and you were just talking about how a lot of the family members probably are culpable for some things that happened to.
I don't think she got into that, but I know she talked about
Yeah.
all the people who testified.
So, yeah, speaking about that specifically, so I personally believe that based on the evidence that came out at trial, that there is enough to make me believe, at least, that Grandma Annette and Aunt Shannon should be facing some charges because they absolutely knew what was going on in that house.
So
I believe that.
So I think, but so by the way, she's saying this because there's a distinction point where we're at a divergence, and this is one of those things where it's like it's really hard to be principled sometimes because when you're looking at this is awful. I think that they are guilty of like child endangerment and child abuse. So those are the things where like a caregiver is responsible for this whoever they're taking care of, and they're allowing something to happen with their knowledge, and they have a special responsibility to protect them. I do not think, though, that they should be charged with like CSC or homicide.
I would agree with you.
Accessory.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you to that point. Yeah. I don't think that they don't have culpability with any of those things. But I think to let them walk scot-free with no charges is ridiculous because of the length of time that this occurred. It's not like he just had sex with her one time and then took her out and killed her. Mm-hmm. This was so many months of things that to say that they did not know that this was happening under their roof is crazy work.
And is it... I'm going to ask you a question that lets you go off.
Yeah.
Can they say that they did not know?
They can say whatever the fuck they want. I think that based
is there
on the
evidence
text,
that supports
yes,
it?
I think the text messages support it, at least for Aunt Shannon.
Okay, so what does that say?
What do you mean, what does that say? The text message?
Yeah, what are the text messages?
So the text messages that were read at preliminary exam, there was a text message that she sent to Jarvis where she was saying to him that she doesn't want to fuck him anymore or fuck with him anymore or whatever because she knows about the relationship between him and Neziah. Now, that was as... You know, I'm not giving it to you verbatim, but that was the gist of what those text messages were. And I think there was like, he was like trying to deny it still at that point or whatever. But for her to even suggest in any way, shape, or form, and again, this is not verbatim what I'm telling you, the text messages were read at preliminary. For her to even suggest in any sort of minimal form that she is aware of the fact that there is a relationship going on with her 12-year-old niece and a 41-year-old man, ridiculous. I don't give a fuck on what level. You shouldn't have I should never have to text no grown man about no relationship that he's having with a child. So period.
Just like because there's obviously evidence that supports that he's been grooming people, children, multiple children for years. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that's to be said about him not just grooming children but also adults? And are they then, obviously they're still responsible because they're adults and they should have been safeguarding their children, but there is a factor into that where he almost was like had this mind control over people, it feels like.
I agree with that to the point of like it is their responsibility as adults to have a fucking grip over themselves. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there was because this was like numerous baby mamas of his that were all under this guise of like this guy is like little tiny baby Jesus or something. Like I don't know what's going on. Everyone was revering this guy.
And he wasn't like a cult master. Like this isn't one thing where he's getting everybody to drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah. He's just taking advantage of really desperate women.
Yeah.
Right. But I think to her point, like I think that is
some mind control, some using that.
It's him picking the right, he's picking the right person to do this shit with.
The right people. Yeah. But I don't think he's like, it's not the R. Kelly stuff. Yeah. It's not that level of like power and like, it's not that.
He has no power.
Yeah, he has no power. So they're literally just giving him choosing to give. Yeah. There's like sacrificing their kids without him even asking.
Right.
He's just going like, I'm here.
They're around.
Yeah.
Stop me if you want to.
Exactly.
And no one's fucking doing shit. Like,
yeah.
Is that something that they could argue as a defense though? That like they were under some sort of like control to not.
So
I don't think this is like a Stockholm syndrome type of thing. Like I don't know, but I would think that like even as a defense attorney, I don't want to give that type of defense to them, like Stockholm syndrome. Like they were just like, I can't help myself. Like I've been brainwashed. Like,
no, because like you really can't. So Stockholm syndrome is really about yourself.
Yeah.
It's about I myself am sympathizing with my kidnapper.
Right.
This is like I myself am allowing my kidnapper to take advantage of other people. And I mean, this isn't perfect because there's probably a name for what they're doing too. But this is where you go like you can't argue that because you're giving somebody else to them and you have a legal obligation to protect that person.
Yeah. Right.
And they're just allowing tons of people to be
and to the point where there was, now this didn't come out at exam, but there were other podcasts that I was watching in relation to this, and there was at least one other baby mama who got on a podcast and said that she knew that he had a prior conviction for CSC of minors, and she still got into a relationship with him, and she still allowed her children around Jarvis. That level of, oh my God, like, I don't understand. Like, there's no definitions for these things.
To that point, in some ways, like, and the judge said this, everybody failed.
Is culpable. Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Everybody failed her.
Yeah.
And I think to that point, maybe these charges should be brought to people that were in this web because that will just make it much more real. You can't allow this to happen under your law.
So again though, like when we're saying these charges, it's really easy in anger to say these other people should be charged with CSC or homicide. And that's what some people will want. That's why we have...
I don't think that's realistic, but I understand other people who don't know the laws well.
When people are hurt and angry, they make laws in reaction to when they're hurt and angry. That's why... so there's this law about CSC convictions, and it's Megan's Law. And realistically, it was made to say... So that is the reason that sex offenders have to register.
For SORA.
For SORA, for the Sex Offender Registry Act, basically. So the reason is because a kid was kidnapped and eventually found dead, and the person that they convicted was previously convicted of a sex offense against a child. And up until 1996, that was not a thing that people had to register and be aware of. So they made this whole thing. But aside from, I think in Megan's Law, like he wasn't convicted, but there was two that happened at the same time, so it's a little confusing. Aside from the 1 in 20 cases where that happens, most of the time Megan's Law is not actually doing anything but making it restricting where people live. But that law was made in anger, and it's not, it's created a lot of strife for people who are maybe they're trying to reclaim their lives and not be part of that. And so now they can't live in certain places. They can't be in certain places.
Because there are a lot of things that put you on the sex offender registry list that are like if urinating in public can put you on the sex offender list. Like, so to your point, there's a lot. But you know what? I heard, and again, this did not come out at exam, but this was just based on me getting way too involved with this case and listening to all these podcasts. But Jarvis did not actually stay registered to the sex offender list like he was supposed to from like 2019 to 2022 or something like that, or 23. He was supposed to have maintained his registry and did not, which leads me to wonder, where are the people that keep track of the people that are on these lists? Right. Like, how are you just lost off this list for whatever period of time?
But real quick, so like the thing is, it's not like you don't appear on the list because you haven't registered like you need to.
Right, but if you're not keeping up with it, there should be someone keeping up with this.
With you?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, because there's no way that he was supposed to be around children at all.
At all.
Right.
Period. So he shouldn't have...
How do you even enforce that?
I don't
anyway? Like, he's not gonna tell people, well, guess, like, I'm getting into a relationship with you. Also, by the way...
I'm on this SORA list.
Yeah.
Like,
no, he should be telling people. Like, that's something that...
Yeah, but this motherfucker
he's really going
this motherfucker ain't doing shit.
How do you enforce that?
I don't know if like, is he... I don't know all this stuff about, like, when they get into dating. because that is really, really, really weird and far away from kind of where I usually operate. But being in school zones or whatever, because they're, I think, allowed to have children. You know, like that doesn't stop you from
Well, yeah,
having
he
children.
can. I don't think there's anything that can prevent him from having children.
Yeah,
Clearly, this
right.
guy's like.
He has how many kids?
They said over 21 children.
Jesus
Over 20.
Christ.
Yeah.
They only listed 13 at the exam, but according to family members of his, he's got over, or not family members of his, but family members of Neziah have said that he has over 20 children.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely not preventing him from having kids, but being around kids, yeah, 100%.
But
There's,
I
don't
guess
know.
I'm saying, does it prevent him? I don't even know if it prevents him from having custody of, like, if he had children. I don't know if it prevents him from having custody of his
I don't know,
children.
but it should.
It should, but that's
Well,
like a
Like,
See,
this
so
man's
given
having,
his
he's
case-
having sex with his own children.
Right.
Like, it should.
again, needs to be like, that's weirdly where the justice system goes wrong to me, is like we have all these different divisions and people get confused. I've had clients who get confused. So that would be like, this is what you were saying is a crime. So you would think, let me call the police. But what I know is that is a CPS issue, which is not the police.
Right.
And so then you're like, I have to listen to these two agencies. Neither of them is fully in control of what's happening. Then you have to go to a judge, and it's a whole
Mess.
big bag of issues and mess.
So that's basically the other podcast that I was listening to this morning, which was two family members of Neziah's that are not Aunt Shannon or Grandma Annette. That was the great aunt and I want to say like the cousin of Neziah. They're much older individuals. And they were talking about the family dynamic and what was going on. And they indicated that they actually tried for a very long time to get custody of Neziah and Neziah's brother. One of them was going to take the brother. One of them was going to take Neziah because they were aware of Jarvis coming into that house. They had heard multiple children in that house, Neziah included, that had said that they were being sexually assaulted by Jarvis. And they had had conversations with Aunt Shannon. And Aunt Shannon had said, they're saying that Jarvis touched them. Jarvis offered them money at some party to perform sexual favors.
Jesus Christ.
And then when they were trying to get involved, like Shannon herself was telling this to these other family members. And so these family members were going through CPS and like they were trying to get lawyers and do all of these things. And it was such a mess, evidently, according to what I heard on this podcast. Like they could not. This entire thing is just a failure on everybody's part.
Yeah, so there's like culpability for the people that were in the close circle of family members. But what about social workers? What about the school system and like counselors at school? All of that.
So,
What even outside of the system, but even like folks that like his business partner and his culpability. Like how far can this go as far as like charges being brought against them?
I do think it has to be a smaller
Yeah.
net. I don't
Like,
think
you
we could
see-
just go crazy
see-
with it.
but that's the thing I'm talking about. When you start going like, look at how many people could see it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a problem, and you're angry because this turned out in literally the worst way possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
She doesn't even get to get therapy to get better. Like we're all presuming she's dead.
Yeah.
So, but when you're talking about who can we charge with all this stuff, like the caretakers, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you start going like his business person, or his business partner, like
Yeah, I think that's too far outside of the bounds. Because I think that starts putting responsibility on everyone for everybody else's stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't think that we as a society should or can do.
Yeah. Is there reform in the system itself, like with these?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't want that reform.
No.
So like that makes it so that everybody has to tell.
Yeah.
And while we want everyone to tell for the safety of children, that's not the way the laws would work. The laws work where it's like you see a crime, you can report it, or you can go like, that's not my business. I'm not here. When you're a caretaker, you see something happening to the person you're in charge of caring for, you have to fix that.
Yeah.
You have to do something. But going like, I'm just seeing this whole interaction, it's not limited to just children when you're doing stuff like that. That would be like, oh, you see a husband and wife walking outside and like they're acting aggressively.
Yeah.
If they find out that husband attacks her before or after you saw them and you're seeing some form of it, are you responsible for calling?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
when you do things like that, because it just gets really, really, really murky.
It comes down to just like morally, should you be doing it versus
Morally, everybody should have said something.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a. Oh, there's
So,
it's not enough.
I want to hear because I know that there were even young children who testified. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So there was a 9-year-old girl who's apparently a cousin of Nazia's, I believe a cousin of Nazia's, who testified at exam. And I was watching this all from home, just from YouTube. So they were not allowed to
Show her face.
show or just audio either. They shut off audio and video because she's a minor.
Yeah.
So I just had to read up on it afterwards to kind of garner the information. But the information that she testified to was that on 3 separate occasions, she, another cousin of hers, and Nazia, who's her cousin, were at the shop, and Jarvis had sex with Nazia and the other cousin and attempted to have sex with her. I think just on one occasion he tried to have sex with her and she said no, and then she wanted him to take her back home, and then he took her back home. But yeah, her testimony was that she witnessed Jarvis having sex with Nazia and her other cousin in front of her. These are the reasons that I feel like there's a multitude of reasons that I feel like this case does not need to go to trial. He needs to take a plea. I think one thing that could be the reason that they held that exam is because maybe the child is not going to have to testify again, and they're going to use the preliminary exam transcript. But
I mean,
I would pray.
Because it's unusual for you to bring a young child in to talk about these kinds of things, right? They try to avoid that, right?
No,
I think it's necessary.
No, it's
to establish what they need to establish. It's necessary.
Yeah.
So one of the charges is sexual assault of a minor, and so without her, how are you getting in? That she was actually
the text messages.
No, so that doesn't prove that they had sex. That proves
that they were talking about sex.
I see.
This proves that there was actual sex. This 9-year-old girl was 8 years old at the time and was like, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it happen.
Wow.
I would pray that this does not go to trial because, for one, I don't think that the world needs to be exposed to these text messages again. Like, we are we've heard it, we've seen it, it's disgusting, it's repulsive, we don't need to hear it again. And I think the trauma that would be put on a child to get in on that stand and to have to talk about this again is too much, where if it did go to trial, I would hope they would just use the exam transcript and just read it in. But God, I hope that this guy I hope they offer him.
And also, like, this is weird, but it's tough to be a defense attorney to have to cross-examine a person.
A child.
In that situation.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really tough. It can weigh on you, and like really, no one wants to do that.
Exactly. And I wasn't able to see how they crossed because, again, the video and audio was turned off. But I know in other cases that I have done where there have been children testifying to certain things, I have had to seriously consider, because the way that most attorneys want to cross-examine, I mean, we want to come up and draw blood. That's the point of our cross-examination. And when you're considering a child on the stand, you have to tailor your questioning, and you cannot come across the way that you want to in front of a jury, because you can't talk to a child like that, and it's very ineffective on the part of your client, and it's just not.
Well, and you have to consider about, like, well, you don't have to, but you're in your mind, you're considering the trauma that it can cause on the kid long term.
Exactly. Because the kid is just a witness to something. They're just on the stand. You don't want to flat out, like, call a kid a liar or anything, but you still want to do an effective cross-examination, which becomes very difficult when they're a child.
Right.
There's only so many corners you can really put a kid into where you're not going to look bad in front of a jury, and you're not going to feel bad like you're a shit person for coming after a kid like this.
Yeah.
So.
And you're really just trying to, at that point, from a defense perspective, probably just trying to prove that they can't remember things correctly.
Exactly. And there's a certain, at least for me and my style, there's a certain tone and a certain approach that I like to take on cross that is not
appropriate.
It's not appropriate for a child. It's not appropriate for a child.
Especially a child in a sexual assault
Exactly.
case.
Exactly. It is not appropriate for a child in a sexual assault case.
But the tough part is there's almost no tone that's appropriate for a child.
Yeah.
Because they really should not be in that. They just should not be in that. Yeah. Sexual assault shouldn't exist in general, but like they really should not be in that.
They've already been through
enough, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very, very tough for defense attorneys when it comes to cross-examining a child. And I think that only will play into the hands of the prosecution if in fact this goes to trial. If they do choose to not use the exam transcript and just bring the 9-year-old to test, like that testimony is going to probably seal and deal this trial, because a 9-year-old girl testifying to seeing something that no child should have ever witnessed.
Yeah.
A jury's going to eat that up. Yeah. I think.
I think we covered everything about the case. Is there anything else that we want to like touch on that we haven't already, or should we jump into some closing thoughts?
Well, I do want to point out, like, what would you be like? We're not there. We're not in the room. We don't know what's happening. But I know what I would be telling him, this should not be going to trial.
Yeah, you got to take a plea,
and
my man's.
It almost does not matter what the plea is.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter, because whatever you're gonna... I'm sorry, I cut you off before you can even get the damn question out. Like, oh my God. My hands, you taking a plea. We are not, like, look at what's already happened at this exam. The amount of text messages that they read that are so disturbing to any regular individual. You don't even got to be regular. If you're halfway regular, that touched your soul. That touched your soul. Like, deep down in the pits of your soul. That is, you are taking a plea. And I don't care what it's for, because if you go to trial, they are going to they're going to eat you alive, bro.
They're going to ask if there's a possible way to get the death penalty.
Yeah.
They're going to ask for that.
In a state that doesn't
in a state that, like, this is one of the first states where it's like, no, we're exclusively not giving the death penalty.
Yeah. This is so crazy that there's no way. I pray that this does not go to trial. I would be spending every day in jail with this dude, talking to him like, bro, plea. We're taking a plea. Yeah. I would be handing him all of his evidence for him to reread over and over again. I would be printing off a multitude of copies, and every day, whether he's got a copy of it or not, I'm gonna be giving it to him again. Yeah. Read them text messages, bro. Read this shit that you said to this girl. Like, this is crazy.
And there's nothing, like, you've heard it, right? What do you think should happen to him?
Oh, he should rot in fucking prison.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you this. Like, going to prison, even if we don't offer the death sentence, going to prison for him and the crimes that he's committed, it is a death sentence. I don't, he's not going to do well in prison.
No.
And so, from a defense perspective, is that something that you could probably, like, negotiate into a plea? Is, like, keep him separated, make sure...
They're not going to separate this man for life. They're not doing that.
Also, I don't think they're in control of it.
Yeah, they're not in control. Yeah, that's not something that can be written into an agreement, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be bad for him when he gets there, but the only way it won't be bad for him is if they just put him with other, like, sex offenders that are like, oh, yeah, we all like the same thing.
But
like,
do they do that?
Well, you're classified by... Yeah. There's certain classifications that you get. So his classification is going to be a maximum security facility. And then within that maximum security facility, there's going to be separate, like, pods of people. Now, I don't know whether the dissection of all of that is going to be like all CSC people, all murder. Like, I don't know how they do that, but I would believe that there's going to come a time that he's going to come across motherfuckers that have seen his face and know his story and know what's up. And it's going to be a little bit, I would hope, rough for him, because, my God. Yeah. My God, this is something like I don't ever want to see a case like this ever hit us ever again. Detroit, what is happening? 2025, and I know that this is beyond 2025, but still, oh my God, Jarvis Butts has just...
Yeah, I really do see him taking a plea, but realistically, why would the prosecution offer anything that's, like, less than life?
Yeah. But you know what? Do you realistically see it? Because think about Jalen Brazier's case with Zion Foster. Jalen Brazier did not take a plea, and Jalen Brazier should have taken a plea.
Right. He should have taken a plea, but he wasn't as it didn't look as evil as
As
what's happening
diabolical. I
as
agree
what's
with you.
happening here.
I agree with you, but nonetheless, that was like one step under the diabolicalness.
Yeah.
Like for sure, Jarvis Butts is on top, but Jalen
But-
Brazier is what comes to mind when I was.
But
he's
when
the one that like lied about killing his cousin or something.
Yeah, he was having
Okay.
sex with his cousin and threw his cousin in the dumpster in Highland
Right.
Park.
Okay.
was it proven that he was having sex with his cousin?
Well,
I thought it was highly inferred.
It was highly inferred that he was having sex
Or
with his
implied.
cousin and impregnated
Or
his
wanted
cousin.
to.
Yeah. No.
He
It was
impregnated her?
it was highly implied.
Highly implied. All of this is highly implied, but I'm sorry. When we're talking about a person like I don't know, but that guy, he should not have with the amount of stuff that came out in his trial too.
Yeah.
Like he admitted to putting the body in the dumpster. Sir, at the point that you go into an interrogation room and you tell them that you put a body in the dumpster, my mans, what are you going to trial for, sir?
But also he was not 40 years old.
I agree.
Like he was way closer in
21
age.
or 22
Well,
or
and
something like that.
he's also been doing this to a multitude. I'm talking about Jarvis Butts has done this to a multitude of people.
Yeah.
One of the things too, I'm sorry to cut you off, and you told me this. How many of the people who he had children with were adults?
So that has also been said too, that I don't know the number, but he has baby mamas that allegedly were minors at the time that he impregnated them.
And when you say were minors, did they even clarify or classify
They did not say
as
the ages.
under 18 or under 16?
There was no age discrepancy
Yeah.
given, but this was again from the podcast where the family members of Neziah said this, and they clearly have done their research on Jarvis Butts.
This is like a shitty way to say it, but it's like he created a harem of like groomed women.
He did. He really did.
It was like he was picking women to have children with, and then having sex with his own children. Like this is some sort of nasty. I don't know what this is.
And well, he was also having sex with their children too, isn't it?
Yeah,
like it's
their children, his children, the nieces, the Lord have mercy. I don't know what this man was doing. It's something sick.
Okay, well, on that, do we have any closing thoughts on this case?
Yeah. So the judge, when she was, giving her decision, I thought did a great job of just explaining like there are times where you go and you give people sometimes some type of credit. That's a weird way to say it, but she was like, "Oh, there was a period where I thought maybe you had a 10-year-old brain." And she was like, "No, you're just a monster." And that is something that I think sometimes we don't think about, but like this is really a person who created a horrifying environment for everybody. Yeah. And there were so many people who needed to like kind of come step in, say something, protect anybody involved, and everybody chose to just be quiet until it was too late. Well, not everybody chose to be quiet until it was too late, but like nobody did anything that could save this girl.
Yeah.
And,
I agree.
I mean, so it's really tough when you're living in a society where it's like this was what happened, and only he looks like he is facing penalty.
Yeah, my closing thoughts on this. I have so many thoughts, but if I had to sum it all up, my God, I don't know where this guy came from. I don't know what type of childhood he had. I don't know what type of trauma this man endured to even make him the type of diabolical monster that he is. And to that, I say I don't even give a shit, to be honest with you. Like, at the point, like, you're 41 years old or 40 years old, I don't give a fuck. Sir, you grown as hell. I don't give a fuck what the fuck is wrong with you, what type of childhood trauma you had. If you didn't fucking have that shit taken care of, the time that you did in prison already did not fucking give you some time to sit down and think about the fact that you need to stop fucking touching children. You were given a second opportunity. That's crazy. Like, I don't know what the fuck was wrong with you. But to Jarvis Butts, I say fuck you, bro. Fuck you and anything related to you. And to the aunt and to Aunt Shannon and the grandma Annette, fuck y'all too. Like, you people did not fucking, I don't care on what level. When you got a child around you, you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention to so many things. Like, should I pay attention to my dogs? If they don't eat food one day, I'm on it. Like, 100%. Oh, what happened? Like, why are you not eating food? If they're shitting weird outside in my backyard, I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? If I find a sock missing, I'm trying to make them throw up so I can find the sock.
Yeah.
This is a whole human, though, that they paid no attention to. Disgusting.
They ignored the signs, too.
Ignored everything, bro.
Well,
like,
and I think the sick part about it, and I like to empathize with people when they go through, you know, some insecurity or they have something that they're going through that maybe stops them from doing the right thing. But this is like so sick that it's like, yo, like you totally just were self-serving this, and every single person in this instance was self-serving and cared. Did not give one fucking ounce of care.
It doesn't even seem like they were self-serving as much as they were serving Jarvis Butts.
Serving Jarvis, but serving their own like insecurities. Like, why would a woman do this to their children? Because they, for some reason, thought that
they needed him so badly in their life. Which actually, to her point, that has less to do with Jarvis Butts as it has to do with themselves. Yeah. If there was another Jarvis Butts, they would have taken him too. 100%. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do specifically with Jarvis Butts. It had to do with them trying to fill a hole that they have inside themselves. That shit is sick. Yo, go out and fucking, you know,
do better.
Do fucking better. Go out and fucking fill that hole with fucking shoes and coats or some other shit. I don't know what the fuck you need to buy, but golly, get the fuck out of here.
Or at this point, just leave it empty.
Leave it empty. Leave it empty. For real. Leave it fucking empty. Yeah. That hole can't be filled because what the fuck you just did is crazy work. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are my final thoughts. I don't know. Ooh. Yeah. This is a heavy one, y'all.
It's a heavy one. But I guess, you know, with that, I guess the theme is do better. And,
do better. Detroit, y'all have brought us into 2025 on some wild shit. Like, I hope the rest of 2025 just eases out. You know, they say get all the bullshit out the way. Hopefully we've...
Okay, this was the start, though. I know! Like, what would be the easing out, like, at this point?
Like, are we even in reality anymore? Like, this is nuts.
Quick recap. We talked about a person getting their ass beat and stealing ashes.
Yes.
A person pleading to a hate crime against a transgender woman.
Yeah.
And then we spent 45 minutes talking about...
Jarvis Butts.
Jarvis Butts.
We didn't talk about... We got to talk about Ashley on the next episode.
Yeah.
We'll do that on the next one.
Yeah, next episode. Stay tuned, y'all. We got... yeah, Detroit is...
In the meantime, I'd say maybe don't get lit in 2025. At least for like let's practice dry January because we've been way too lit.
Leave the lit for us,
they
okay?
Can be lit.
Leave the lit for us?
Yeah.
Kind of like that saying.
Leave the lit for us. Like, y'all be way too lit. Don't be lit no more. Leave it for us. We're lit. Y'all settle down. Settle down.
All right. Thanks.
We out. Bye.